एक बार फिर से स्वागत बीए पार्ट फर्स्ट के विद्यार्थियों का। प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, आज के वीडियो में हम स्टैंजा वाइज एक्सप्लेन करेंगे द पोएम द विलेज स्कूल मास्टर। इससे पहले के वीडियो में हमने पोएम के बारे में और पोएट के बारे में डिस्कस किया था। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट द वीडियो। द विलेज स्कूल मास्टर। Beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way with blooms fertile, unprofitable gay, there in his noisy mansion, skilled to rule, the village schoolmaster taught his little school. A man severe he was and stern to view. I knew him well, and every torrent knew. Well, had the bonding tremblers learned to trace the day's disaster in his morning face. So, first we will discuss the first stanza. The village schoolmaster ran his little school in a small village. It was situated next to the irregular fence that fringed the village. Fringed मतलब सहारा देना. That fringed the village path with full blooms, beautiful but ornamented furze. He ran the school in his own house, and it was full of noise. He was not only a very strict disciplinarian but also a ferocious person to observe. He was familiar to the poet and all other students because they had endured the master's rays. His face was a thing of careful scrutiny. The trembling pupils would gaze at his face to sense his present frame of mind. The day misfortunes were written on his forehead or in between the eyebrows. So, in the first stanza, the poet tells about the school and the schoolmaster. In a small village, the village schoolmaster used to run his little school. It was situated next to the irregular fence that fringed the village path with full blooms, beautiful but ornamental flowers. He was not only a very strict disciplinarian but also a severe person to observe. In the second stanza, the poet says that the schoolmaster was a contradiction. Although he was stern, he was kind and good humored. He had a store of jokes that he used to tell his students. Even if the students did not feel his laughing at those jokes, yet they pretended to be happy or merry to impress their teacher. If the children observed a frown on his forehead, they circulated the gloomy news throughout the classroom in an undertone. But he was in essence a kind man. If at all he had any fault, it was his intense love for learning. He wanted his pupils to become genuine scholars, and hence he had to be demanding with them. So, in the second stanza, the poet explains about the school master, his merits and demerits. In the third stanza, the poet says that villagers were unanimous in their opinion that he really was a learned and an extremely knowledgeable man. He could write and calculate too. He could also survey land, forecast weather and tides. The person approved of his skill in debate. The schoolmaster would keep on arguing even if defeated. He would fling booming words at his adversary, and the villagers would be convinced that he was established his standpoint very thoroughly. They stood run out. They stood up round the two debates and witnessed the verbal duel. They were in awe of the schoolmaster when they heard the high sounding and incomprehensible words used by him. They wondered how his small head could keep that enormous hoard of knowledge. So, dear student, this was a stanza-wise explanation of the poem The Village Schoolmaster. And now we will discuss the summary in few words. There was a schoolmaster's home near a straggling fence by the roadside. He was a strict disciplinarian and had earned a great name for it. He held the school in his own house, and it was a very noisy school. Himself stern looking, he was remembered by everyone, especially the truants like the poet himself. The boys who used to tremble in fear before him, they were skilled in predicting the punishment, and the children laughed with him in order to please him. And when he frowned, the signal went silently in the whole class that it argued ill for them. In spite of outward sincerity, he was a kind-hearted man who loved learning and was severe only because he loved learning so much. The villagers admired him for his vast knowledge. He could do sums in arithmetic, measure lands, forecast the region and weather, and even goes. The teacher demonstrated his debating talents by arguing on even after he had been defeated. The bombastic expression he used made with the humble villagers wondered how such a small head as his could contain so much wisdom. So प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, इस पोएम में पोएट ने स्कूल के बारे में, स्कूल मास्टर की जो करेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं आइदर गुड और बैड, उनके बारे में डिस्कस किया है. In the next video, we will discuss a critical summary of the poem The Village School Master.